Hello, first grade friends. Today we're going to do a math lesson about time. I think time is a lot of fun. I really like learning about time and teaching time. Today we're working on analog clocks, so I'll show you what those are here in a minute. Our essential question for this whole chapter has been, how do I determine length and time? So we focused on length for a few lessons. Now we're moving on to the time part of this. This is just a review problem that you can do really quick. So it says, what's the total number of frogs? Maybe you can find a quicker way to count them than by counting each one. So I'll give you some time to do that. So hopefully you figured out that there are 16 frogs. Then it says, how many groups of 10? So I can either look at my number to figure out how many groups of 10, or I can make groups of 10 up here. I'm going to go ahead and circle a group of 10, so I'll count by twos. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So here's my group of 10. Can I make any more groups of 10? No, because I don't have enough. So I have 1, 10, and how many ones? 6 ones. Very good. And this is just a review of what we were working on with our length, measuring length. So we're going to do a couple of these real quick. First, we're going to guess how long we think the objects are, and then we're going to measure them. So let's guess. How long do you think this lunchbox will be? I'm going to guess that it will be 2 cubes long. And then we're going to measure it to see if we were right. Remember, when you measure, you got to start at one end. And the objects that you're using all have to be the same, and they have to be touching. In this case, I'm connecting my cubes. So about how long was the lunchbox? So I had said it was 2. I don't know where it went. But it was actually 3 cubes long, about 3 cubes long. What about this carrot? About how long do you think the carrot will be? I'm going to say it's going to be about 6 cubes long. So let's measure now and see. Start at one end, connecting my cubes. Alright, so it's not quite 6 cubes long, but it is almost 6 cubes long. So I'm going to stick with that, and I'm going to say it's about 6 cubes long. Okay, so you might have heard me mention today that we're working on analog clocks. So there are actually 2 kinds of clocks. This one right here on this page is an analog clock. So where might you see analog clocks in your house or at school? I want you to think about that. So I know in my classroom I have 2 analog clocks like this hanging on the wall. Some people, when they have a watch, their watch will look like an analog clock like this, where it has all the numbers on it. And then the other kind of clock I want to show you. This one, here's the analog, but this is a digital clock. So that's the other type of clock. Where would you see a digital clock like this? So in your house, you might see one of these on your microwave or on your oven, where it just shows you the time. It just has the numbers. And then also you can find digital clocks like this on cell phones, on computers. And then my watch actually has a digital clock on it. So a digital clock is different from an analog clock because you can just look at it and see what time it is. You don't have to interpret it or read it. Whereas an analog clock, when you look at it, you have to know how to read it to see what time it is. So we're working on these analog clocks today. And this is showing me that on an analog clock, there are 2 arrows that I see here. And these are called hands. So just like you have 2 hands, most clocks have 2 hands on them. Well, all clocks have 2, some clocks have 3. So this shorter hand, the red one, is called the hour hand, and that's what we look at first to read what time it is. And then this longer hand, the blue one, is the minute hand. That's what we look at to see how many minutes there are. So when I look at this clock, the hour hand is pointing right at the 3. So I know it's the hour of 3, and then when the minute hand is at the top of the clock, where the hour starts, pointing to the 12, that means there are no minutes yet. So this time is just 3 o'clock, like they wrote here. Let's practice where you read some of the times on the clocks. So let's look at this green clock, number 1 first. So look at your red hand, that's the hour one, look at what number it's pointing to. And then again, when our minute hand is at the top, that means there are no minutes yet, so this time would be 9 o'clock. What about this time? Look at your red hour hand, what number is it pointing to? There's no minutes yet, so this time is 2 o'clock. What about this one? 11 o'clock. And this yellow clock, they're trying to trick you here, so make sure you pay attention to where that red shorter hand is pointing to see what the hour is. So this one would be 6 o'clock. So we practiced looking at some times to read what hour it is. Now I kind of want to talk to you more about how the clock actually works. So on an analog clock, like this one, when the time starts going, so my blue minute hand, when the minutes start going by, the hour hand starts slowly moving. So watch my red hand as I move this around. So this is by minutes. You can see that red hand is slowly starting to move the more minutes there are. And when it gets back to the top where the hour begins again, you can see that it's on to the next number. So minutes do not go this quickly. I'm just moving it around to show you that as the minutes go by in an hour, the hour hand is slowly moving to the next number. So here's 2 o'clock. By the time my minute hand goes around again, there are 60 minutes in an hour. Now we're to 3 o'clock. Let's practice a few more where we have to read the times. So look at this blue clock, check your shorter hour hand first. What number is it pointing to? So what time is this? This is 1 o'clock. What about this yellow clock? And that one is 8 o'clock. So another thing I want to tell you is that time can be written different ways. So we can either write the times we're working on like this, where it says 8 o'clock, or 8 o'clock would look like this, like it does on a digital clock. So it's an 8, and then those 2 dots that I put are called a colon. And then when there's no minutes, we just put 0, 0, so that also says 8 o'clock. And I can show you what that looks like on this clock. Once I take this off. So I'm going to make this clock say 8 o'clock. That was the time we just did. Okay, and then if I look at what it looks like on the digital clock, there is 8 o'clock on a digital clock, like we just showed on this page. Practice a couple more. What time does this purple clock show? Very good, that's 4 o'clock. How about this orange one? They're trying to trick you again on this one. Both hands are pointing to the 12. So remember, we're focusing on the shorter one, the red one, the hour hand. So it's 12, and then when the minute hand is pointing at the top, we know that's no minutes, so it's just 12 o'clock. I could write 12 o'clock like that, or I can write 12 o'clock like this with a 12, a colon, and 0, 0. So we can also use clocks to help us solve story problems. So we're going to try to use a clock to help us solve this problem. So it says we have to draw the hands on the clock once we figure out what time. Ava gets home at 3 o'clock, and Evan gets home 1 hour later. What time does Evan get home? So we're going to use this clock over here to help us. I'm going to make it say 3 o'clock because that's what time Ava gets home. So here's 3 o'clock, and it said Evan gets home 1 hour later. So when my minute hand goes around one time, I know that's been an hour. So 1 hour later than 3 o'clock is 4 o'clock. So Evan gets home at 4 o'clock. Very good. Let's try another problem like that. This one says Roger begins reading books at 7 o'clock. He reads for 1 hour. What time does he stop? So if I don't have a clock, like I just showed you how we did it on here, we can do this without a clock also. So if Roger begins reading at 7 o'clock, he reads for 1 more hour. So I'm going to add 1. So 7 plus 1 more makes 8. So he stopped reading at 8 o'clock. And I'm going to try to draw that time on my clock over here. So first I'm going to draw my hour hand. It's shorter and it has to point to the 8. And then I'm going to draw my minute hand when it's 8 o'clock. My minute hand is just pointing at the top to the 12 because there's no minutes yet, and that hand is longer. So here is 8 o'clock. Let's try a few more practice problems here. So number 1, what time is this clock showing? Look at your hour hand. So this one is 4 o'clock. What time is this clock showing? 2 o'clock. And remember, I can write 2 o'clock like this, or I can write it like this, like it would look on a digital clock where it's a 2, a colon, and 2 zeros for no minutes. 2 o'clock. So both of these say 2 o'clock. What time is on this blue one? 7 o'clock. And what about this green one? That one is 12 o'clock. Good job. Let's try a couple more. What time is this showing? 5 o'clock. Or I could write 5 o'clock like this with a 5, a colon, 0, 0. What time is the yellow clock showing? That one is 3 o'clock. Good job. All right, let's see if we can solve this problem. It says Miguel has soccer practice at 7 o'clock. It lasts for 1 hour. What time is the practice over? Okay, so he has practice at 7 and it lasts for 1 more hour. So at 7 o'clock plus 1 more hour would make 8 o'clock. So his practice is over at 8 o'clock. And then this is just a review about the hands on the clock that I told you about. So on an analog clock, the blank hand is shorter. So which hand is shorter on an analog clock? Is it the minute hand or the hour hand? Hopefully you said the hour hand. So the hour hand is shorter on an analog clock. That's the one we look at first. And it says the blank is longer. So that would have to be the minute hand. Good job. So the last thing I have for you is just a short little video about what we've kind of talked about today with time. And there's also an activity on Schoology that you can go complete after you watch this video. So some things you could do today are try to read your clocks around your house, see how many digital clocks or analog clocks you have, and then you could also create a schedule of what time you do things, like what time you wake up, what time you eat breakfast or lunch, what time you go outside, what time you do your schoolwork. So that would be a cool thing to do with time also. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson and watch this video and then go complete that activity.
Time to the hour. Time to the hour. The clock has the numbers 1 to 12. The hour hand is shorter. It points to the hour. The minute hand is longer. It points to the minutes. The hour hand is on 3. It is 3 o'clock. Look at the clock. What time is it? The hour hand is on 9. The minute hand is on 12. The new hour starts on 12, so there are no minutes to count. It is 9 o'clock.